Admiration? A little. Judgment? Yeah. Latent homosexual desire? Maybe. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in the Poetry Discussion playlist, now approaching 600 poetry discussion videos strong. We have here today a poem called Countrywomen by Katherine Mansfield, and it reads as such. These be two country women. What a size! Great big arms and round red faces, big substantial sit-down places. Great big bosoms firm as cheese, bursting through their country jackets. Wide, big laps and sturdy knees. Hands outspread, round and rosy, hands to hold a country posy, or a baby, or a lamb. And such eyes, stupid, shifty, small and sly, peeping through a slit of sty, squinting through their neighbors' plackets. You were doing so well, Catherine. You were doing so well. Why did you have to call a group of people stupid? I don't know, but we went ahead and did that, didn't we? Now, here's something worth acknowledging here as we sort of try to work our way through this poem. Katherine Mansfield, the author of this poem, was a pretty woman. And I don't know this, but from my mind's eye of images of Katherine Mansfield, I imagine she was petite. She was, well, I imagine she was skinny. I imagine she was small too. So I imagine she was a very petite person. Just maybe I'm wrong on that, but the only reason I'm mentioning someone's appearance is because a great deal of appearance is made in this poem. And I think what we're doing, so we have what a size. We have this first seeming compliment here. This isn't saying they're heifers. This isn't throwing out some insult like that, but it's saying those are big women. Great big arms and round red faces. This all seems not to be, well, maybe calling someone's bosom cheese is less than ideal, but it does not seem to be necessarily judgmental or negative. Bursting through their country jackets. This isn't saying bursting through the waistband of their pants. It's saying bursting through their country jackets at any time in human history, through most cultures in human history. Bursting through specific places in a jacket might be seen as a positive. In certain cultures at certain times, bursting through everywhere in the jacket would be seen as positive. So there's nothing necessarily judgmental going on through this point. Wide, big laps, okay, well, not necessarily an insult. And sturdy knees. Now we're starting to play with the line there. Sturdy knees. Suggesting that those knees have to be sturdy. They must be sturdy or these women wouldn't be able to stand. Hands outspread, round and rosy. That's kind of a weird one. Don't get it. Hands to hold a country posy or a baby. These be mothers. Or a lamb. They've got to go gelding, whatever. And such eyes. Here we have that exclamation point returning. The same way we had it up here with what a size. And such eyes. Surprise, mother. Some fries, mother. Right? We have that same sounding line there. And we call them stupid. And such eyes. Stupid. Shifty. Small and sly. Now, here's something. Okay, let's go up here first. Why do I make a big deal of this? Why am I saying that, oh, well, this is judgmental as opposed to passing judgment on a specific couple of women? Well, the title is Countrywomen, which might in itself be enough, but it is a single word. So we don't even have the excuse that the countrywomen that Mansfield is talking about are specific women. The insinuation from the word being one word as opposed to two is that all countrywomen are the same. So I stole a definition from Cambridge Dictionary, and we're going to get back to why I talked about Katherine Mansfield's appearance. Othering. The act of treating someone as though they are not part of a group and are different in some way. Now, notably, this does not say that the others are not part of any group. They are not part of a group. So what we have here is Katherine Mansfield making the observation that these countrywomen, they're not part of her in group. What is her in group? What are the differences by which these judgments might be made? What are the differences by which the positives and negatives might arise? Why do we need to observe them? Well, if our author here, we don't have a deliberated speaker. So it is not necessarily the case that the poem comes from the speaker of our author, but it is more likely than not. Perhaps more likely than it would be otherwise if we had a separate speaker denoted in the poem. So the observations in this poem, the observations in any poem are obviously that of the author, but they don't have to be owned by the author. The author might be making an observation and passing it off as someone else's for effect for that character. We don't have that. So Katherine Mansfield, pretty woman, skinny, seemingly, at least, petite, observing the differences as opposed to the similarities with these people, with these country women. Notice two words here. What a size. Different than our authorial voice. Great big arms and round red faces, big substantial sit-down places, big old rumps on these country bumpkins, big old rumpkins on the bumpkins, great big bosoms firm as cheese, bursting through their country jackets, wide big laps and sturdy knees. So we're obviously pointing out the differences between the author and these country women. We are left to assume that these things are notable because they are different from our speaker as well as our author. So, how are we getting down here to this? We have the differences in size. So, the process of othering is assuming that because these women are great, big, gargantuan, curvy women, everything about them is different. And because me, Katherine Mansfield, I am small and pretty and petite and skinny and intelligent enough to be a poet, intelligent enough to be a renowned poet. Mansfield died, I believe, at 30-something. I believe in her mid-30s, tuberculosis, something like that. So you're talking about someone who would have been too young to have grown out of the attractive phase, the more attractive phase of their life, right? The generally accepted attracted phase of their life, the traditionally attractive phase of their life. You're talking about who is talking about women she finds to be untraditionally attractive. And because of this, she's attributing stupidity to the mix. And something else as well. Peeping through a slit of sty, squinting through their neighbors' plackets. Now, Katherine Mansfield was from New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand, someplace like that. And someone will hate me for insinuating those two places are similar, but New Zealand, I believe, is where Katherine Mansfield was from. I figured plackets was a difference in the jargon between the United States, maybe even the 1920s, and 1920s would have been late, so 1910s, 1920s, and today, or New Zealand and the United States, somewhere in there, there's something lost in translation. I figured plackets was like the boards on a fence, right? I figured that this was talking about peeping through boards in a fence to see what your neighbors are up to. That's not. I went ahead and figured out what plackets was. Let me just check. A placket is an opening in a garment that allows for fastening. You will see them in blouses. You will see them in skirts. It is an opening that allows for space. So we're not talking about spying on the neighbors. We're talking about looking up their skirt. We're talking about looking through the holes in their blouse. We're talking about, checking out someone else's hoo-ha bits if you get the chance. But it's weird, right? Oh, I messed everything up there. Let me read something else here. This is from Wikipedia. The term othering or otherizing describes the reductive action of labeling and defining a person as a subaltern native, as someone who belongs to the socially subordinate category of the other. The practice of othering excludes persons who do not fit the norm of the social group, which is a version of the self. Likewise, in a human geography, the practice of othering persons means to exclude and displace them from the social group to the margins of society, where mainstream social norms do not apply to them, for being the other. Later in the same article, in Being and Nothingness, an essay on phenomenological ontology, Jean-Paul Sartre applied the dialectic of intersubjectivity to describe how the world is altered by the appearance of the other, of how the world then appears to be oriented to the other person and not the self. The other appears as a psychological phenomenon in the course of a person's life, and not as a radical threat to the existence of the self. In that mode, in The Second Sex, Simone de Beauvoir applied the concept of otherness to Hegel's dialectic of the lord and bondsman, and found it to be like the dialectic of the man-woman relationship, thus a true explanation for society's treatment of the mistreatment of women. We have in this poem, perhaps, Katherine Mansfield feeding into the same thing, othering groups of women. But it is strange. Why this? Staring through your neighbor's clothes. Perhaps I'm completely off the mark. Maybe something is lost in translation, and the meaning in the United States that Google will provide me for what is a placket is different than 1920s New Zealand Google. But we have we have a speaker. I will stop, pardon me, talking about Katherine Mansfield. But we have a speaker who is I'm going to stop talking about Katherine Mansfield, but I'm going to maintain the assumption that our speaker is petite, pretty, and skinny. We have a speaker who's pointing out all of these size differences and then makes a stereotypical leap to stupid. We've all seen what is a perceived negative correlation between size and intelligence. The big, dumb football player, the big, dumb Viking, the big, dumb blank, whatever it is. You've seen that negative correlation. The bigger a person is, the less intelligent they must be. Katherine Mansfield, our speaker, gotta stop saying that. Our speaker feeds into that stereotyping here. But we mention here baby. All of the things that we have talked about here, wide, big laps that would be good for hosting a baby. Bursting through country jackets. What portion of a woman is a great big bosom that might be bursting through a country jacket? Probably good for feeding babies. Where is it here? Substantial sit-down places. Well, that might aid in the reproductive process. We have a lot of things here that are pointing to where's the wide hips or the wide laps point to wide hips, birthing hips as they are known. We have a lot of stereotypically motherly physical attributes going on here, which motherly, at least the insinuation there is heterosexuality. So why are we talking about peeking through our neighbor's plackets? Why are we doing this? Is this perhaps a latent type of paranoia? Because, let's be honest here, when we're reading this poem, you go back up here, we're talking about another woman's boobs. We're talking about another woman's butt. We're talking about all of these things because we must have looked at them. We're not just talking about them, we're observing them. The very act here is the act of looking. And then we end the poem by saying, these big dumb country women try to look through each other's clothes, try to spot each other's hubba-hubbas. Kind of weird. This would be a great poem if you are finding this for a class. This would be a great poem if you have to use a literary theory, queer theory here would be a prominent poem or a prominent theory for this one. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel. So consider hitting the subscribe button, stick around for more, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.